those are going to be for sure themes. So the people group, okay, that made this is up in British Columbia, northwest coast of Canada, and they're called the Kwakwaka'wakw. And that's just probably my favorite people group to say, the Kwakwaka'wakw. So it's spelled right, like it is up there on the slide, but it's pronounced. So everyone needs to practice saying it, right? Quack, walk, walk, quack, walk, walk. So they have a very special ceremony, the quack, walk, walk do, that this mask, that the transformation mask are performed at. So let's talk about date. Remember, anytime you see something that's wood, feathers, beads, leather, and it's in this kind of condition, right? You can still tell what it is. You can tell that it's been taken care of, or that it's, you know, in pretty intact. Then it has to be 1800s or 1900s, right? Or 20th century, or 21st century. So please keep that in mind to kind of help you with dates. So this is the late 19th century, right? Late 1800s. It is a wooden carved mask. It's painted, and they used both natural paints and also manufactured paints after contact with the Europeans. And then the string here is actually to work the mask, to make it do what it's supposed to do, right? So remember, mask, crowns, headdresses, always part of a larger costume. So this would be part of a full costume, and it would be just one component, probably the most noticeable, most important component of that costume, but it's part of a whole outfit, okay? The mask opens, it splits in the middle and opens into two sections. Closed, it looks like some sort of bird, right? And we can kind of see, like, you know, feathers or what might be hair, right, on the back. You can obviously see the beak and the eye. When it opens up, you see a human face right in the middle. And then on either side of the, you know, what is these kind of wings that are the inside of that shape of the face, on either side, there's going to be symbols that relate to this particular person, this particular family, this particular lineage, right? So this ritual is going to be both ancestral and religious. It's going to be looking back to their ancestors and honoring them, but then it's also a ritual that's a performance piece. It's also going to have drama, right? And so the drama would happen, they would light a campfire. They would have their ceremony kind of around this campfire, and the performer who's wearing the mask would pull the strings, and when he would pull the strings, the mask would open and shut and open and shut. And so kind of like a pulley system, right? Or it's animated, it becomes animated. So thinking about transformation, right? When the person goes to put on this mask, right? Just a regular mortal person goes and puts on this mask, all of a sudden he is transformed, okay? Transformed into an animal, right? By putting on this mask, he is transformed. And then as he performs in the mask, he transforms from this animal to an ancestor, right? When it opens up to the human face, it becomes an ancestor. So here's a picture at the top of what this particular mask looks like opened up. So again, it's a little bit interesting, but the strings actually go through the eyes there. And then the strings would kind of feed down under the mask, and then the person wearing it would be able to pull the strings, and it's going to open, become animated. The other part of the costume he'd be wearing is bark costume. So it would look like a reddish color covering his body. He would, again, perform wearing this. Again, he, right? So this is going to be performed by men and made by men. Just talks more about this idea of transformation. The symbols, again, that are painted on the inside are going to relate to that individual. Now, obviously, this isn't like a true portrait. This doesn't look exactly like his ancestor. This is going to be a figure type. Form, definitely talk about symmetry and just talk about the animation, the fact that it is a motion object, and so it has moving parts. Oops. So this was worn during a potlatch. Potlatch is a ceremony where they are honoring their ancestors, okay? Honoring their ancestors. It also is going to have to do with social position and power. So you could say power and authority, because only certain people would be eligible to communicate with their ancestors. So I would say you could link this back to our Yaxch Chilean, Lady Zook. Remember how Lady Zook would bleed because her husband, Lord Shield Jaguar, was the king, and so she was able to bleed, and she would have these visions, right? She had the vision serpent with the warrior coming out of his mouth. And so only certain people are able to do certain rituals. Again, we saw the same thing at Machu Picchu, right? And this idea that the Incan king would be able to perform rituals. And so it's this kind of set apart task for certain people. We talked about dates and the fact that if you see one of these that's intact, then you have an idea that it's going to be relatively recent, although we know that the potlatch ceremony has happened for many, many, many years. Now, you can tell if a potlatch mask is post-contact, meaning it is made after contact with the Europeans, because it's going to have a little bit different carving technique. They were able to use iron to carve. The colors from synthetic paints are a little bit brighter than the natural dyes that had been used before. Here is a photograph from a potlatch ceremony. And so if you'll notice in the background, there's these three big totems, right? So totems are very typical of the indigenous peoples of Northwest Canada. And you might have seen them, even if you've been to Alaska, you might see the totems there. So again, that same kind of area. And then you can see up in the front, there's people crouching, and they're wearing the bark and grass cloth. And then they have these really, really elaborate, some of them very large and long masks on. So again, they are demonstrating here that kind of metaphysical understanding that they are transforming, right? As they perform this ceremony, they are transforming. And so this ceremony would be done, again, performed by men, and then there would be men and women in the audience, and it was typically done in the winter time, and it was kind of at the seasonal change, right, of the winter time. And so it's kind of like a yearly ritual, right? Something that they would do a lot, and every one of the community is going to be getting involved. Now, from 1885 till the 1950s, potlatches were actually illegal, even to the Kwakwaka'wakw people. And this is because of Christian missionaries who came along and saw them as immoral, because they believed that they were worshiping a God other than the Christian God, right? And so this idea of looking to an ancestor to worship instead of God was a problem. They also believed that cannibalism occurred as part of the potlatch ceremony. It did not, okay? But that was a rumor that got started, and because of that, a lot of the masks were confiscated and destroyed because they were seen as immoral, right? They were against the Christian God. Now, this ended in the 1950s. They were allowed to do them again. The Canadian government is the one who allowed them to do this again. And so they are still practiced today. Now, obviously, there's been some change over time, but they are still practiced today in Northwest Canada. All right.